Welcome to the ArmaniTalks YouTube channel, the #1 YouTube channel to help you level up your 5 mighty soft skills: public speaking, storytelling, social dynamics, social intelligence, and creativity. 5 soft skills to change your life forever, skyrocket your confidence along the way. If you haven't already done so, make sure you hit subscribe because today we are going to be entering the world of public speaking. And I have a very awesome guest on episode today. He's one of my good friends, Edrico, and he's a fellow Toastmasters as well. He's the current president of the club. He is competing for a division competition for the speech competition coming up, and he's here with us today. Edrico, how's it going?
I'm doing well, Arman, my friend. Thank you for having me.
For sure, for sure. I mean, it's funny because we've talked on the phone a few times, and we both came to the same conclusion that conversations between two Toastmasters aren't really there in the digital space right now.
That's true. Yeah, we don't see many conversations between Toastmasters in podcast, on YouTube. So I think something like this is extremely special. And I would dare to say that we're breaking new ground.
Yeah, I would say so too, mainly because we're going to be talking about a lot of cool stuff today. And just for the audience members that are here, we're not only going to be talking about the good stuff of public speaking, we're also going to be talking about the tougher stuff, like speech anxiety, a lot of the self-doubt that you face beforehand, a lot of bombing your first speeches, stuff that most people that aren't in Toastmasters or involved in public speaking get to see. So I'm really hoping that today's conversation delves into like the really nitty-gritty stuff, and I wouldn't want to do this conversation with anyone else.
I appreciate that, man. And yeah, just to mirror what you said, I think it's important to discuss those parts of public speaking because I think a lot of people, sometimes they become disillusioned when it comes to public speaking and Toastmasters, and they see people that are on these stages or on YouTube like yourself delivering this content, and they don't think about the fact that that person might be dealing with anxiety or that they didn't start at that level. So I think it's great to discuss all of the parts of public speaking so people can get a well-rounded sense of what it is and how they can be their best at it. So this conversation is definitely important.
Yeah, and just to basically start all the way in the beginning, before we have any speech experience under our belt, the first thing that we all face is speech anxiety.
Yes.
So how about you walk us through your first moment battling speech anxiety and what ultimately led you to change that and do something about it?
Well, what's interesting about my journey with speech anxiety is that I didn't necessarily have anxiety regarding what it was that I was presenting. I feel like I always had some confidence in that area. But where my anxiety came into play was when it came to my body and my body language. Because I'm a pretty short guy. I'm 5'5". And, you know, growing up, that was always a point of contention for me. I was always bullied for that. My community, I wasn't the athletic one. So I always grew up with this insecurity. And I noticed that when it was time for me to speak, even though I would have these ideas, I would be confident in the ideas that I would have anxiety as to how it is that I'm perceived. Okay, I'm confident in what I'm saying, but are other people going to listen to me? They're going to take me seriously. I had a lot of body issues. And as you know, nonverbal communication is a big thing. And
Especially with public speaking.
Especially with public speaking, yeah. And if you're getting in front of others, you have to be confident with yourself, not only mentally and the ideas that you have, but physically as well. So that was something that I really battled, especially at the beginning of my speaking journey, public speaking journey. But I decided that, you know, that's something that I can't change, firstly. And I got to a point where I'm like, you know, it doesn't make any sense for me to harp on something that I can't change. And this is actually interesting because I know you and a great friend of yours, Shlomo, actually answered a question from one of your listeners regarding how do they build confidence when it comes to their height. And
Yes.
something that was brought up is like guys like Kevin Hart, for example. I always use Prince as an example. These are short guys that
Yeah. How tall is
have
Prince?
made and continue to make an impact in the world. And, you know, I just started to look at it like, hey, you know, life is diverse, humankind is diverse, and I'm just on one end of the spectrum. And this is something that I'm going to own. I'm not going to allow it to own me. So it just comes a point where you decide to move past your insecurities, move past your fears to accomplish something that you really want.
Well, that's crazy you brought up Prince because I had no clue Prince was short up until what you just said right now. And I think
Yes,
one of the major reasons for that was because of the swagger that he had and the confidence that he carried himself with. So I think
exactly.
the whole like being very short, it does get to you at first, but the
Mhm.
more that you say do a tough task like public speaking, it starts becoming more on the back burner.
Yeah.
And hearing your story is very unique because it seemed as though you had confidence in what you were going to say, but not as much confidence regarding the look portion, which built the speech anxiety. While for
Yes.
me, it was pretty much the opposite, where
Opposite.
yeah, where I did have the height and everything, but I
Mhm.
really felt like people didn't want to hear what I had to say. And when I
Mhm.
thought that, that's what made me really have this self doubt every time I was speaking. And that's one of the worst things you want to have because when you have that self doubt about your own topic
Yeah,
and you don't show enthusiasm for your topic, other people aren't going to show enthusiasm for you.
that's true.
Yeah, so I mean, it's very unique that you gave that insight into speech anxiety, where I'm sure a lot of my listeners are going through the same thing, but they just didn't know how to vocalize it the way you just did.
Yeah, and it just goes to show that everybody has an insecurity, especially when they're beginning or they're doing something unfamiliar or new. It might be the fact that you're short or the fact that English is your second language. There's always something that someone might struggle with. But the thing is, even though it might be varied, we all have it, but it's about whether or not you allow that to stop you from making progress.
Absolutely. I say every security was once an insecurity. Every
Yeah,
secure person was once insecure. And that's unique because with speech anxiety, unless you admit that you have speech anxiety in the first place, you're never going to do anything about it. I remember when I was first starting off my public speaking journey, and I had a lot of the speech anxiety where, you know, when you're in class or you're starting a new job, they say, how about everyone introduces themselves and says one fun fact about them?
yeah,
That kind of stuff will get me nervous. And that was a form of speech anxiety if you think about it. But after I would end up basically making a fool of myself, I'd go back and I'd say, well, I mean, public speaking isn't my thing. Like, who needs public speaking anyways? I mean, you just needed to introduce yourself. That's it. But the problem with that kind of thinking is when you have speech anxiety and you fail to acknowledge it, then you fail to make any form of changes. Did you
yeah.
ever have that moment where you had speech anxiety, but you felt like, man, you kind of undermined the issue?
Yeah, I mean, there have been definitely opportunities. Now, just for clarity, you're asking if I've ever had speech anxiety. And after that particular moment, I'm like, okay, you know what? I don't really need to be an expert in public speaking or
Yeah,
communication. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, there have been times like that, especially when I've messed up, so to speak. And I think it's a way to just make yourself feel better. I know that that was what happened for me. There was one particular speech that I prepared for, and
Mhm.
I just went blank when I did it. And at the end, and at the end of the speech, I was like, you know what? I don't really need to impress anyone. It was like, you know, I don't really need to show off my skills or prove anything to anyone. So, I mean, I have had moments like that, but what I've transitioned into is using those moments to learn instead of making it just kind of like a prideful moment or pushing it off. It's like, what can I learn from this? And why do I have this reaction? Like, why am I not okay with messing up? Or why do I feel the need to not own that and, you know, grow from it?
Right, right. And when you make that acknowledgement, that's when you are able to transition from denial into learning mode.
Yeah.
Would you say that's around when you started entering Toastmasters? Because personally for me, I started entering Toastmasters by complete accident, and I covered it in that last video I did on how to be more confident. I thought Toastmasters was a place to get breakfast. You know, I didn't really think it was a place where you build your public speaking and all that stuff. So I went there, right, toast. I mean, you can't blame me. But yeah, I mean, eventually once I went in there, I got called on stage. I couldn't say one single word in front of a lot of people I knew at that time. And it embarrassed me. And embarrassed me to a point where I decided to take a break from public speaking for a long time. But eventually, after taking that long hiatus, I realized that the pain, the shame, all that kind of stuff wasn't getting better. It was actually getting worse as I was avoiding public speaking.
Yeah.
And that pain was ultimately what led me to go back to Toastmasters and give it another shot.
Yeah.
Did you have a moment like that, or did you just go into Toastmasters the first time and continue on with the club?
Well, actually, the moment that I just articulated, that was after I decided to join Toastmasters.
Yeah?
But just to share my story of how I got into Toastmasters, I've always been the kid that never had a singular passion. I always envied people that said, okay, I want to do this. I know I want to do this, because I never was able to decide what it was that I wanted to do. And so in 2016 was the year when I decided, I'm like, okay, I'm in my mid-20s. Everybody's asking me what I'm going to do. I don't know. So I spent a lot of time in like meditation and prayer and just trying to find out what it is that my purpose was supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
It turned out that, you know, I'm just going to fast forward to December of 2016. We had a retreat for work. And at that time, like I said, just a few months previously, I had been thinking about what it is that I wanted to do. I figured out at some point that I wanted to bring hope to people. I didn't know exactly how, but we had a retreat for work. And the gentleman, he went around the room and he was asking all of us, you know, money, time, nothing was a factor. What is it that you would like to do with your life? And I said, I would like to travel the world and speak. And it was monumental for me because it was almost as if someone else was saying it. And after that moment, it's like all of the things that started to happen in my life pointed me towards public speaking. And so then that's when I decided to get into Toastmasters and just really develop my skills. And even while I was in Toastmasters, not all of my speeches went well. My table topics, I fumbled some of them. And so at the beginning, I felt a lot of anxiety and a lot of angst around my performances, how I was perceived. But I just decided to stick with it.
Well, that's the unique part about it all. When you are first public speaking, the entire journey is very hazy. It wasn't until that gentleman asked you what you wanted to do, you were able to articulate it. But I think that's how it is for a lot of people that are very hesitant about joining Toastmasters right now. They're thinking, well, I don't know if public speaking is for me. The funny thing is, either did we. You know, we just kind of gave it a shot. And the more that we progressed, the more that we were able to articulate it. And throughout that journey, just like you mentioned, I mean, whether it's with your beginning speeches, like the icebreaker, your Toastmasters table topics, I mean, a lot of these little speeches in the beginning stages, they're supposed to be bumpy.
Yeah.
And this is basically coming from two Toastmasters that I've personally been doing it for 5 years. How long have you been doing it?
For about 3 years now.
Yep. And so there's 8 years combined between both of us. And I think one of the key elements that we both can say that we experienced were bumps along the way. But let me ask you something. Would you say those bumps actually helped you fine tune your skills more?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
Yeah.
most definitely, man. And I think that's why it's important for people to embrace just every learning moment. Even now, you know, both of us being professional speakers, I think that we still have an opportunity to learn from everything.
Uh-huh.
And I think it's really important to, you know, experience some things that make you uncomfortable, because that's the only way that you can grow. And I think it's interesting because when you feel the anxiety and you feel just the nervousness and you have these bumps in the road, if anything, I think we should change our perspectives on them. Because I think a lot of times we look at just feeling nervous and not having a good first speech as, oh my gosh, I failed, horrible, I can't believe I just put myself out there. But if anything, we should be proud of ourselves, because the fact that you're feeling nervous or fearful means that you're putting yourself outside of your comfort zone. Or the fact that you gave the speech. There are so many people that would like to give a speech or would like to get in front of others. And just the fact that you were able to get up there and articulate yourself, even though it might not have been as polished as you would like it to be, the fact that you're stepping past your fear and not letting it hold you back, that's an accomplishment in itself. And it should show you that you have the capability to stand in that fear, to stand in that anxiety, and still perform and still, you know, put yourself out there. And that's important.
I 100% agree with that because here's the thing. The thing with public speaking is a lot of people wouldn't even just stand on the stage. That's why I respect the person that's on stage and say they are choking away the speech more than the person that wants to get on stage but makes up some kind of excuse, then
Right.
avoids it. And just to add a little bit more, give you a little bit of example regarding the failures that you were talking about. My first ever icebreaker speech, I remember I prepared for it, I got ready, and I had this nice little story that I was going to tell. It's called The Four Haircuts, and I was going to explain how four different haircuts of my life represented the four stages of my life. It was a little book
Okay.
in a speech format. Well, I ended up giving the speech, and surprisingly, I'm not making a fool out of myself. I'm actually going through it from beginning up until the end. And I finished the entire speech, which I was not thinking I was going to be able to do. And I was feeling really good about myself. Well, around the end of the speech, and during the evaluation, and by the way, folks, you get evaluated after each of your speeches for Toastmasters. For the evaluation, it's a 3-minute section.
Yes.
Well, during that moment, my evaluator gave me like the good, how I had like the good parts in the speech, but then she tore into me on one part. Apparently, my back was facing one side of the audience the entire time. Like the entire time, I was just looking at one segment of the audience and completely ignored the other side. And this is a public speaking no-no, and I'm sure you know this.
Yes.
And at that time, I completely just ignored the fact that I had gone through this whole speech. I gave it for my first ever speech. I completely ignored that and automatically just started focusing on the speaker's back.
Yeah.
But here's what happened. I needed that sort of evaluation from that evaluator because guess what? That never happened again.
Yeah.
And that's what a perfect case of when a failure turned into a lesson. And this lesson was something that I could take on with me for the rest of my public speaking career.
Yes. Yeah, most definitely. Because even now in the speeches that I give at the club level, when I'm evaluating, I mean, it's always great to hear what you've done well, but I'm always looking for the comments on what I can improve on or what I didn't do well, because it's those comments that bring awareness to your areas of growth and add to that. So I'm always asking, hey, how can I improve? And I think once you put yourself out there enough, you get to a point where you're not afraid to get that critique. If anything, you're looking for it because you know that's what's really going to take you to the next level.
And I remember earlier how you were saying that instead of us calling it failures, we should call it something else. I think it should be called bringing awareness.
Yeah.
It should be called bringing awareness, because there comes a time where young Toastmasters like us have a chance to evaluate the veteran Toastmasters. I'm sure you have to do it a few times. And when you are evaluating them, you feel a little bit of nerves beforehand because you're thinking, I'm basically like a rookie compared to this person. What am I going to say? Well, when you are evaluating them, say you're saying all the good stuff, these veterans are just kind of like going back, chilling. They're not even listening. But the second you say, I think you should have improved this part, now they spring up and they start taking their notes. Because no matter how good you get into public speaking, you always want to keep becoming aware of what else you can improve on.
Yeah, most definitely. I agree with that 100%.
Yep. Did you ever have a very embarrassing moment in your public speaking career?
Yes, actually, in Toastmasters, as you're well aware, but for our listeners, you have different competitions. In this specific competition, it was an evaluation competition. So the contestants were to evaluate one speech. I was the person that was giving the speech. So I decided to be the test speaker, and I was giving the speech, and I just completely blanked. And it was very uncomfortable in that moment. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. But I got it together. And obviously, being an evaluation competition, I had several people just pointing out the fact that, I messed up in that particular, well, I wouldn't say messed up, but in that particular moment, my body language might not have been as open. And it was very embarrassing. But instead of choosing to look at it that way, I decided to look at it from the point of view, like, let's just say there might be another speech I'm giving in the future, or I might be giving a keynote speech and I blank in those moments. But now I know what to do. I've gotten the critique, I've gotten the criticism and the advice on how this can be better. So next time I know, the next time I blank, I'm not going to close my body up. If anything, I'm going to lean into the audience, face the audience. I'm not going to show it on my facial expression, but if anything, I'm just going to slow down, breathe, smile. So these are things that I've learned. So even though that was a moment I thought was embarrassing because everybody was obviously evaluating my speech, it turned out to be one of my greatest blessings, because if I just delivered it perfectly and everybody would have said, oh, this is perfect, this is great, I don't have anything to evaluate you on, I would never have known, what my tendencies were if I ended up blanking out, and what I should do and resort to if that happens in the future. Because we're human, things like that happen, but it's all about how you manage the situation.
Yeah, and especially getting it done earlier rather than later. Because imagine if you are in a speech competition or you're speaking in a keynote, a wedding speech, whatever, and that happens to you there. Even if it does, it's a learning moment. But the biggest thing that Edrico and I are both trying to say is that in order for you to survive in the public speaking game, the number one thing that you have to do is embrace your speech anxiety, understand that everyone goes through it, and two, turn the failures into a chance to bring awareness for the future. Yeah. It only is a failure if you just cry about it and not learn anything.
But if you don't do anything about it.
Yeah, but if you can learn it, become aware, recalibrate, and go at it again, then you'll be good to go. The funny thing about Toastmasters is you always have second chances, because with Toastmasters, it's a very dynamic club. You can be giving one speech a week if you're ready to do that. But yeah, it's a very dynamic club that allows you to always keep moving forward. Personally, Enrico, I think it's one of the best investments a person can make for themselves for a very cost efficient way. I mean,
Yes.
it's under what, $100 or $150. That's nothing.
Yeah. So it's about, maybe I think about $45 every 6 months, which is a steal, a grab. But one thing I love about Toastmasters is, I mean, it's an organization that's dedicated to helping people get better at communication. Not only just communication, also leadership, networking, confidence. And it's an organization that's dedicated to that. So I think it's an amazing opportunity. And another thing I really love about Toastmasters is the fact that it's such a welcoming community.
Yes.
Everybody there is trying to get better at public speaking. And it's not just for people who want a career in that. Some people join Toastmasters because English is their second language and they want to get better. Or they're an entrepreneur and they want to sell their product, but they want to do it in the most efficient way possible. And so I think just the fact that communication is such a big part of our lives, especially if you're someone that wants to really do something with their life, Toastmasters is the best investment ever. I mean, there's no downside to it. You can only benefit from being a part of that.
Well, it's funny that you brought up the community part because I talk about this on my email list on my page a lot. Basically, I don't only consider Toastmasters a vehicle to overcome your speech anxiety. I also view it as a way to overcome your social anxiety.
Yeah.
Because my thing is, there's two things with Toastmasters. Number one, you're networking with a lot of like-minded people. But two, if you can give a speech in front of 15 to 20 people, then one-on-one conversations become much easier. When you are socially anxious, you feel like this big group is always out there to get you. But once you actually take a pause, give a speech in front of that group, you realize that they're harmless. So I've seen a lot of people, they've overcome their social anxiety by first overcoming their speech anxiety. And Toastmasters is able to do that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I've had moments like that as well. Toastmasters has helped me with networking, because I always had that anxiety when it came to like networking, especially for work or just on my own.
Yeah.
It was always nerve-wracking just being in a close proximity with someone, trying to foster small talk. But after being in Toastmasters and giving speeches, but also talking to people after the club meetings and at speech competitions, now it's like I feel confident. I can go into a room and not know anyone, but now I have the tools and tips to be able to start a conversation with someone and really develop a true interest in them. So I definitely agree with you. Anybody that has anxiety with networking or social interactions, Toastmasters is the perfect breeding ground for you to do that.
Yes. Yep. And the people that you meet, I remember for my Toastmasters club, I met a few entrepreneurs, I met doctors, dermatologists. I mean, like so many different fields from all around the world. And the unique thing about public speaking, and I think you touched on this a little bit earlier, there's nuances to it. Some people, they want to become better public speakers so they can be better in social interactions. Some people want to become better public speakers so they can be a leader. Some people want to do it so they can pass their class presentation. And the thing is, you start seeing that in Toastmaster, that public speaking isn't just an act. It's a different kind of mindset that you need to have as well. So with that being said, let's transition over to mindset right now, which I personally think is the biggest thing for public speaking. I think it literally is mindset. It's not some fancy gimmicks about doing your speech in this amount of time, smile. Like, there's gimmicks and stuff that can help you out, but it all starts with the mind. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think your mindset is the foundation for everything in your life, not especially public speaking, because we're talking about public speaking right now. But I think just life in general, the way you look at the things that are happening in your life and the situations, it really impacts your moods, how you move through the world, how you relate to other people. So I definitely believe that in order to be effective at public speaking and to get the best out of, you know, the process of getting better at communication, you always want to address your mindset first and foremost every time.
Yes, that's why when I do work with people on the side regarding public speaking, I tell them to not view public speaking as a way to exercise your speech, because I think that's great, but I want them to view it as a way to exercise your mind. So
Yeah.
just to give you a little analogy, when you go to the gym and you go to the gym for long enough, at first you're going to think you're working out your body. But people that have gone to the gym for a pretty long time, let's say over 6 months plus, they'll tell you that they go there to work out their mind and emotions, and the body is just a side effect.
Yeah.
Same with public speaking in my eyes. If you've done it for 5+ months or so, you're literally working out your mindset, and becoming a better speaker is just a side effect. And this is good news for people that are thinking about getting into public speaking, because once you exercise your mindset in one part of your life, it's a spillover effect. It starts going into other parts. You start becoming better talking to strangers, to waiters, waitresses. You feel more assured of yourself because your mindset is stronger now.
Yes. And I'd like to ask you, what was the point in your public speaking journey where you decided to shift your mindset and use everything that you were experiencing as a growth opportunity?
That's a great question, because public speaking came around the perfect time, because around that time in undergrad, I was starting to begin a new club called Bengali Student Association, and I had just gotten the VP position in my fraternity. So I knew I had to speak a lot more. And a part of me was thinking, oh, well, I only know how to speak well in Toastmasters. Do I know how to speak well in school events too? Well, after I gave it a try, the skills spilled over. And that's when I started to learn that my time in Toastmasters was changing me as a person. I was becoming a grander version of myself, because at the end of the day, confidence really comes down to feeling comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah.
And when you've given a few speeches in front of 15, 20, 30 plus people looking at you, you start feeling comfortable in your own skin. And that level of confidence translates to so many parts of your life. And it was in college where I was starting to see that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and it's amazing. I mean, I do think public speaking in today's current world is a modern day gladiator kind of sport, because it feels like you're going in like an arena and all eyes are on you, the spotlight is on you, and you are basically the star of the show. How do you come up and how do you produce?
Right, exactly. So I think the great thing about this conversation of mindset is that you can change your mindset and you can change your perspective at any time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people, like you said, they look at speaking in front of others as this grand event and this big just thing that's happening that they're a part of, or that they're subjecting themselves to. And I think it's important to look at just these opportunities as just a conversation. And the reason why I say that is because I always challenge my listeners to think about the fact that when you are speaking in front of others, usually, well, let me just take it back. Let me ask you a question. Whenever you're sitting in an audience and you're about to listen to a speaker, do you ever think in your mind, oh, I hope this person messes up. I hope they suck. I hope this message is just horrible?
Never, because if they do bad, then I feel bad and I don't want to feel bad. It's like a chain effect of negativity. So I always want them to knock it out of the park.
Exactly. And that's what I want people to understand when it comes to speaking in front of others. Usually there is no one in the audience that is wishing for you to do bad. Like, everybody is on your side. And when you enter into that situation thinking, okay, these people are for me. These are my friends. These are other human beings that have bills, that have problems, that have insecurities. none of them are different from me. If anything, I'm like the boss here, so to speak, because I'm on the stage. Like, I'm
That's
the
true.
one that's overcoming my fear to speak to these people. So if anything, I'm giving them the gift of me. And I think once you put it into that perspective and you regain your power, it makes it easier for you. It's more enjoyable. And I think anybody can definitely develop that mindset because, you know, we have the power over our perspective. So it's just all about revisiting that.
Absolutely. And from my experience, there's three public speaking perspectives. The first perspective is when you're a complete newbie and you're thinking, do they like me? That's
Yeah.
perspective number one. Perspective two is when you start understanding that, yeah, they do like you. They want you to do well. And now you feel a sense of confidence. That's part two. Part three is when you start evaluating, do I like them?
I like
And
that.
now it turns from confidence into power. And when you have that power, now you're feeling like you're doing them a service by providing value. That's why I always tell my Toastmasters mentees, don't focus on being perfect. Focus on providing value. If you can do that, you'll always maintain the power.
Yeah, and that's definitely true. And I think another part of having that power and, you know, developing that mindset of power is also realizing that you don't need to be perfect to be powerful. And just your authenticity and you being yourself is powerful within itself, just accepting yourself. And I think that's really a big thing because a lot of people think that when you're involved in public speaking that you need to be perfect and that you have to say everything a certain way. And while there are certain things that you can do to show your proficiency in public speaking, the truth is at the end of the day, someone wants to listen to another person that shows that they're human. Perfection is not something that we experience. So to just wrap your head around trying to be perfect, I think it actually disempowers you. And just being authentic, and like you said, just seeing your gift as that, I think that is like one of the most powerful things that you can engage in.
Well, it's amazing that you brought up that point about being authentic and showing your flaws because I personally always notice that whenever I am in the crowd and I am seeing a speaker, I
Yeah.
like the speakers that seem human, the ones that do an occasional slip up in their words but continue anyways, that
Right.
make some jokes. They're not like this robot speaker that you see on TV.
Right.
The ones that seem human. So it's great that you brought that up because even though you're in a completely different Toastmasters club than I am, even you appreciate authenticity. And I think this is great for the viewers because now they can understand that being perfect not only hurts you with building your speech anxiety, but other people don't like you more for it either.
Right. Exactly.
Yes, you're basically one thing that I've realized, and you can let me know if you do the same. I say that you shouldn't be talking to a crowd. You should be having individual conversations with people. And when you do that, you start putting on this act and you start being yourself because it's much easier to talk to one person versus an army of people. What do you think about that? Do you see a crowd or do you see individuals?
No, I definitely do see individuals. I see individual people in a crowd. You know, I think
Yes.
once people start to see just a huge number of people, they start to get overwhelmed. And it seems like, okay, all of these eyes are on me. But if you personalize each person in the audience and you realize that you have something unique to share, this person out of the billions of people in the world, this person is sitting here listening to you. And that's like a special connection. Even if you don't know them, the fact is, this moment in time, the words that you're giving them, this experience is something that can change their lives forever. And so I think it's definitely important to look at your audience as, and don't just see them as a crowd, because I think once people start to view their audience as a crowd, they dehumanize them and they start just seeing them as a mob, so to speak. But yeah, it's like
That's true. That's
that I
true.
have to perform for. But when you're able to speak to individuals in the audience, it not only calms you, but it centers you in your message and the fact that you're not just talking to a mob of people, you're actually talking to someone who is a mom, who is a daughter, someone who might have been suicidal last week or just discovered that, one of their family members passed away. I mean, you have an opportunity to just shape them in that moment. And I think just understanding that you're just connecting to people, that's the greatest gift.
Yes, because when you connect with the people, that's what public speaking is really about. And that's something that Toastmasters is going to teach you, because at first, you won't ever really see it like that. When you're first giving your few speeches, you do think, okay, I'm going to put on this act, I'm going to put on my public speaking hat, which is completely normal because you do have a little bit of nerves at the moment.
Mm.
But with practice, that public speaking hat becomes your identity, and you now get on stage and just basically just act like yourself. And I think that's one of the best things to do in order to connect with people, like you just mentioned.
And I think just a good thing to add to that too is to truly understand how unique we all are. And that's something that I've been noticing for the past weeks, just looking at the people I work with. And I'm like, there is no one else in this world like this person right here.
Yeah.
And like, there's no one else like you. So the fact that you're so unique, you have something special to bring. And
Absolutely.
that's important for people to understand when it comes to authenticity, because we often try to act like someone else or mirror someone else's way of performance, and it doesn't always come off as authentic. You can always learn from other people, but at the end of the day, you have to be yourself, and people will appreciate you for that much more than they will for you just being a clone of someone else.
Yes, that's why I feel like this video was needed, because there's a lot of times when people come up to me in Toastmasters, and these are people that are just entering the club, like, Arman, uh, can you teach me how to get my public speaking voice? And I'm like, no, I can't really teach you. That's kind of like me asking you, Enrico, can you teach me how to speak?
Right.
Can you teach me? No, it's more about discovering your public speaking voice. It's something that happens throughout your time there. But the thing is, what you brought up a few times, every human is unique. So the main part of practicing your speeches is to find out what makes you unique. The way you give your speeches is probably not the way I give my speeches. The way that my Toastmasters mentor gives his speeches is probably not like how your Toastmasters mentor gives his speeches. And that's something I feel like Toastmasters does a great job in. We all eventually bring out our own unique personalities.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And it's just important for anybody, even those that just want to get better at communication, for being an entrepreneur, being the most successful entrepreneur they can be, or just being a better communicator in life. I definitely agree with the sentiment that you have to be yourself. There are some key fundamentals that everybody should know, or at least should practice when it comes to public speaking. So, that goes without saying. But at the end of the day, the thing that is really going to matter is just you being true to yourself, you being authentic. Because like you alluded to, there are some speakers that you listen to and they might have some ahs or some ums. I mean, they're human, but the thing that separates them for you is the fact that they're authentic, as opposed to someone who checks off all the boxes for public speaking. No ahs, includes a story at the beginning. Like, they check off everything, but they are very detached and sound almost robotic. So
very robotic.
It's important to develop proficiency. I want people to know that, but ultimately you have to be yourself. That's what it boils down to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this has been a very big discussion. So how about we transition into a few public speaking insights and tips and like practical tips that these our listeners can utilize, and then we can answer a few questions at the end
Okay.
from 5 lucky selectees.
All right.
Okay, so a few practical insights that I'll start off with it and we can just bounce back and forth. I do think dressing up matters. And the reason I say that is because public speaking isn't something that you're doing every day. And I'll be honest, I was one of the guys too that I was like, oh, well, I wore cargo shorts and a V-neck that I wore 2 days ago, and it shouldn't be a big deal. And maybe it isn't. But when you are a beginning speaker, just putting on that nice clean shirt or maybe even wearing a suit does add a little bit more confidence to you. So if you are someone that has a lot of speech anxiety, go on and give that method a try. Go on and dress up a little bit more. Take your looks seriously. And believe it or not, even when you fumble, your audience will be more forgiving.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I agree with that. I think the clothes you wear definitely have an impact on how you feel.
Yes.
And when you feel like you're bossed up and you have on maybe like you have on a tie, or maybe not even a tie, but you are wearing clothing that you might not typically wear on a day-to-day basis, it just makes you feel like you're important. It just gives you that, that little extra oomph that you need. And another insight that I want to add to that, I think it's definitely important to dress up as well, but I think it's just as important to understand your body language.
Yes. Yep.
And there are a lot of poses that you can do, a lot of ways that you can place your body that will automatically increase your confidence. And I think if you have that in connection with dressing well, you're already putting yourself in a position to win and feel better. So obviously, some of the movements, like putting your hands above your heads or just putting like both of your hands on your waist, just empowering your body and just giving yourself that freedom to just feel powerful. It makes a difference.
Yes, and just to add on to that, I have a theory. This isn't proven by any means, but I do have a theory that I think 90 to 95% of speech anxiety is stemmed from the body. Because what happens is when you are very anxious, your body starts shriveling up, it starts getting very small, your chin goes down. And when that happens, your lungs become 30% less effective. When you hunch, lungs become 30% less effective. And what does that do? That messes up your breathing. Now you have shallow breaths, and shallow breaths lead to anxious thoughts. So just to go back to what Edrico was saying, make sure you stretch your body, do power poses, or do something beforehand, because you will feel that much better beforehand from the power poses. Your body is something that you can always control. Your thoughts may not always be under your control, but your body is always under your control.
Yeah, most definitely. And to talk just a bit more about body language, I think it was Amy Cuddy. She had a TED Talk.
Yes, you did.
And what she was essentially saying is that even if you're not confident at the beginning, just putting yourself in these power poses convinces your body that you are confident. Not only does it show your audience that you are, but it shows that your testosterone levels increase and just some of your hormones. There are some hormonal changes that happen within your body when you just stretch out and give yourself the opportunity to breathe a bit more. So I think just being in those particular poses and moments, and even if you're able to work out the day before or do some yoga or breathe during the day, that helps a lot, because when you're working out or you're doing yoga, you are getting rid of a lot of these a lot of the anxiety that you have. If you're in the gym, a lot of the stress that you experience there, it causes you to be able to deal with the anxieties or the stress of public speaking. So if you can do anything just to just to calm yourself down, whether it's like meditating or doing yoga, it can only help you. You want to be as comfortable as possible.
Absolutely. I agree. So we both agree that body language is huge. Another insight that I have is that, and we can maybe agree or disagree on this, but
Okay.
the audience can never fully understand how nervous you are. I think in our minds, we think we come off more nervous than we really do. And just to add on to that, there's a theory I want you to look up. It's called illusion of transparency. That's when you feel like your internal nerves are leaking to the outside public and you feel uglier. Most of the public speaking anxiety comes down to people thinking they look ugly and nervous. But yes, most people can't really tell that you're nervous as you think you are.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I agree with that wholeheartedly. That's something I was actually thinking about today, because we all know ourselves. We know what our insecurities are, where we think we can improve. We know everything about ourselves. But what other people see is just the external. And it's true for everybody in your life, unless they have shared these things with you. When you see your coworkers or people on the stage, you only see what they present to you. And so it's important to understand that what's going on the inside, people can't see that. They can't tell, they can't read your mind. And that is definitely true, because I've had moments where I've been doing a speech or even table topics and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm horrible. Do they even understand what I'm saying? And people would come up to me afterwards and be like, oh my gosh, that was life-changing. Even this past Monday, I participated in table topics. I didn't think I did that well. I thought that everybody else that participated did better than me. That was just my opinion. But I didn't win that table topics, but I was like one vote away from being the winner. So the fact that there were people in the room that thought what I gave was worthy of, winning that award, it just goes to show that a lot of times we are our own worst critic. And many times people think we're doing much better than we give our own selves credit for.
Yes. I mean, there's been so many times both of us probably thought, no, we did not win that ribbon tonight. And we
Yeah,
somehow ended up winning.
exactly.
Absolutely. Another insight is that record your speeches. And this is something that I didn't do in the initial stages, but it skyrockets your progress by so much when you see yourself from a third party and you have tapes that you can look back onto. I mean, that's one of the main reasons I also started this YouTube channel, is so I can showcase a lot of my speeches and personally watch them back myself and see how I can improve for the next speech. But record your speeches. I mean, there's phones, there's cameras that you can buy, and get the permission from your Toastmasters club. They're more than likely going to approve of it. And yeah, but just get some tape to measure and analyze your performance.
I think the great thing about that is we've talked about getting evaluated on your speech from other people, and that is important. But when you're able to record your own speech and look at yourself through video or listen to an audio and determine for yourself what it is that you can improve on, that's empowering, because now you've identified your own moments of growth. And I believe it's extremely important to always practice. So that, I guess that's a sub insight, because just your practice, when you practice, those are, I consider those the ugly moments. That's when you mess up and get your ahs and your ums out. Those are the uncomfortable moments, but it prepares you for when you're speaking to other people. And I think a lot of people don't like to practice and don't like to rehearse because they don't like to hear their voices, or they say like 100 times in an hour, in a minute or something like that. And a lot of times we don't like to face the things about ourselves that we need to improve upon. But I definitely agree with you. It is a life changer, because you give yourself the opportunity to evaluate yourself. And
Yeah.
that's the best way to grow, honestly.
Yeah, we talk about practice. No, but that's true. I mean, one thing that I recommend, just to add on to the practice point, is try to see if you can get your speech done 5 times perfectly without messing up. And every time you do mess up, start from the beginning. And trust me, you're going to go through this a few times, but what it's going to do is going to allow you to like basically get your speech from your conscious mind to your subconscious mind. And now when you're giving the speech, you can deliver it on autopilot. I'm pretty sure you went through it like 50 times beforehand or something, but now you can focus more on the body language, the delivery, the eye contact with the right people. So yes, practice is extremely important.
And then when you get the mechanics out of the way, it frees up all of this mental energy that you might have spent on how am I delivering this, or, I don't really understand this particular part of my speech as well as I would like to. You get all of that out of the way because you've already crunched out all of that stuff during your practice time. And now you're actually able to connect and you're able to convey your message because you're comfortable with it. You know what you're going to say. And now all of the anxiety is a bit less. You can focus on delivering this message to other people instead of, just the mechanics.
Yes. No, that's huge. I mean, that really is big. And yes, let me kind of go to the next one. Another one is, here's how you don't open a speech. There's 2 things that people do not want to hear, and that's an apology and an excuse. And I'm pretty sure, I don't know if you've been guilty of it, but I've been, where I start the speech like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry that I didn't prepare beforehand, blah, blah, blah. People don't need to hear that. If you need an idea of a good opener, either do a shocking statistic, ask a question, tell a joke. Anything is better than making an excuse or apologizing.
Because when you do those things, you shoot yourself in the foot. You already tarnish your credibility from before you begin your speech. Many people, like you said, they aren't thinking about what you're thinking about. So the fact that you mention it, it redirects their attention to the negative. Because once you get up there and you're ready to speak, they're ready to hear you speak. They're ready to receive. They're open. And if you start off your speech saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't have time to prepare, or I'm a bit late," then they obviously focus on that. So instead of now focusing on the first point that you're going to make, they think, "Oh, well, he didn't have time to prepare. Maybe he's irresponsible, or why should I listen to him?" Or, "Oh, I didn't even notice he was late, but the fact that
they don't even notice.
he mentioned it, I'm like, well, now I know." And that's a bit irresponsible on your part. So you never want to apologize. And if you feel the need to say something because like it's glaringly obvious, just using the late example, instead of apologizing for it, say, "Thank you everyone for just being so patient with me. I'm excited to share this with you, and I know you are as well." So you always want to reframe it in a positive way and thank them and have them just kind of look at the positive side of what's going on instead of apologizing. That is a big no-no in public speaking. You're absolutely correct about that.
Yes, and I remember, I think I posted a YouTube video on this. This is probably like my 2nd or 3rd ever speech, and I began the speech like, "I'm really sorry, I'm sick." And afterwards, people were like, "We had no clue you were sick while you were doing your speech." And at that moment, I learned that lesson.
Yes.
Another thing, Enrico, and I don't know about you, but I'm sure it's like this for a lot of speakers, but I don't think speech anxiety ever goes away. I think our perception towards it changes. Even to this day, when I give a speech in front of a lot of people, I still have that rapid heartbeat. My body does still feel tingly. I do get those strong feelings.
Yeah.
Nowadays, my mindset, it just embraces it. Are you someone who is under the term of thinking that says that speech anxiety never goes away?
Yes, I agree with that. I think it's important for people to understand that no matter how long you've been doing something like this, I really want to consider it just a part of our human makeup, just how humans have eyes and fingers. The fact that we experience a rapid heartbeat, maybe like sweaty palms, butterflies before we speak, it's a natural thing that happens. It's a part of our makeup. I think it's important to just accept that and realize that the people that are on these stages and are speaking to thousands of people, they still experience it, but they have conditioned themselves to realize that not only is it temporary, but it's just a part of the game. And I can't allow something that happens naturally to stop me from doing what I want to do. So I definitely agree with that. Even for me, every time I go to do a speech now, as recently as my table topics on Monday, you feel a bit nervous, but
All the time.
you just have to go past it. And a lot of times, well, what I've tried to do is when I feel this, not only accept that it's human, but I give myself a pat on the back, because I'm like, the fact that my body is reacting like this and I feel nervous, that means I'm going outside of my comfort zone. That means
Yes.
I'm being a badass right now.
Yep,
So the
yep.
fact that that's occurring to me is a great sign. I prefer to feel that anxiety and that uneasiness and know that I'm accomplishing something greater than to not feel it at all, but to not grow or accomplish what I really want to.
Absolutely. And each time that you allow your mind to overcome those dark emotions, you've exercised your mind and you've done a mind rep. No,
Yeah.
these insights, I mean, I think it'll really help someone out. Do you have any other insights you want to add before I move on to the question section?
I think for me, really the main insight is just really going back to what we said as far as just being authentic, being in the moment. I think that's really the biggest insight that I can provide.
Yes, it's cool that you said being in the moment because beforehand we're always thinking, well, what if this goes wrong? What if that goes wrong? What if that goes wrong? And I will say, call out your excuses. Whenever you do think stuff will go wrong, go on, open a Word document and journal. Talk about, okay, what if it does go wrong? What is the worst that can happen? And when you start typing it out and you start slowing down your thoughts, you see how ridiculous it sounds. You're thinking, oh, okay, if I bomb the speech in front of Mary Sue, Timmy, and Joe, guys that I'll never see again, my life is ruined. And when you see it in typing format, you're like, oh, what the heck? This is just a joke. And
You're
it
right.
helps you stay
Exactly.
in the moment, what you just mentioned. No, that's a great insight there, Edrico. So let's go on to the questions. With the questions, we're going to go back and forth. I mean, feel free to contribute whenever you want.
Okay.
I'll contribute some. Hello, Armani Talks. How would you recommend to improve public speaking, and what books and resources do you recommend? So I'll start off with this one if that's cool. The thing with public speaking, the best way to start is by doing it. You asked me what book. I wouldn't recommend any books. I think books actually delay your progress in the public speaking world. What I do recommend is you watch some videos of comedians, storytellers, speakers, and then you just execute it for yourself.
Yeah.
Good writers are good readers, good speakers are good watchers. So use some time to see how successful people operate and allow your subconscious mind to soak in a lot of those movements and implement it with your own creative personality. What do you think?
Yeah, I was going to add that on top of Toastmasters being a great resource, just getting out there and getting firsthand experience is the best way to develop your public speaking prowess. But I definitely think when it comes to watching videos on YouTube, you want to be very attentive and ask yourself, what did the speaker do well? What is it about the speaker that I would like to duplicate? If I could give just maybe one suggestion to the speaker to be more effective, what is it that I would say to them? So I think just the practice of doing it yourself, but also seeing what other people are doing and putting yourself in an evaluation mode and finding out what it is that you liked about their speech. I think that that's very helpful.
Great response. Next question. Next week, I will be delivering my icebreaker for Toastmasters. Do you have any recommendations for what I should talk about? Do you want to cover that, or you want me to cover that first?
The great thing about the icebreaker is that you're just talking about yourself. And it might seem overwhelming because you can take so many vantage points. But I would just say if you're really having a problem with developing the speech, I say go chronological. Talk about your life as a young child. Talk about, you know, what brought you to where you are now. That's always a great recipe for an icebreaker. But ultimately, I would say just take off all the pressure. You're talking about yourself. You know yourself the best out of everyone. And most people are, I would say the entire club is usually mostly excited for the icebreaker because it's someone
that's true.
Yeah, it's like it's someone new. We have the opportunity to learn about you. People aren't expecting your icebreaker to be perfect, but just have fun with it. This is the fact that you're doing an icebreaker should be enough.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, this is the perfect speech for you to showcase who you are as a person. And I like Edrico's or opinion where he says, go in chronological order. I think that's huge. Another suggestion is pick a moment in your life where you felt very proud of something that you did. And this is helpful because it allows you to create a story in your speech. You basically talk about, say, you failed a bunch of classes in a certain period in your life and how you overcame that. That's basically like a little hero story for your first speech. But whatever it is, make sure you are talking about yourself. And at the end of the speech, the audience knows more about you after than they did before.
Perfect.
Anything you want to add on?
It's perfect.
Okay, perfect. Let me read. Now we got a few questions, but let's choose 3 more and then we can wrap it up. All right. Hello. How long would you say it takes for you to feel comfortable public speaking? This is a good question, and this is a question that I asked my previous mentors, and they would always give me a very hazy response, but I want to give you a pretty clear response. I think if you stay consistent, okay, if you stay consistent, roughly around the 3rd to 4th speech, for me personally, my perception started to switch because the first time I'm terrified. I'm like, oh no, I can't do this. The second one, I'm like, all right, well, I did this before. I think I could do it again. The third one, I'm thinking, well, I know I can do this because I did it 2 times. And the 4th time, I feel more comfortable. That's personally for me. But the reason it went in 4 speeches was also because I was part of 2 to 3 Toastmasters clubs at the time. So I practiced with different audiences. So there are some variables involved. Just understand that it's about consistency. Don't think you're going to do it once a month and overcome it. I recommend getting through at least 1 speech every 2 weeks when you're first starting off. What do you think?
That's the main thing I was going to say. It's about consistency because that level of comfortability, it varies based on who you are, person by person. I think just sticking at it, just being consistent with it, you'll eventually get there. Whether it's 4 speeches, whether it's 10 speeches, maybe it's just 1 speech. Maybe you just need to give the icebreaker to get your foot in the door and get that experience. But whatever you do, just be consistent, continue to put yourself out there, and you will become confident and it will be very obvious to you. And I think a great way to measure that as well, even if you don't feel confident in the moment, is to see where you came from. You might think, oh, I'm not as confident as I want to be right now. I'm on my 3rd speech, but how confident was I when I did my first speech? How
Yes.
confident was I before I even joined Toastmasters? So the fact that you can look back at your progress, I think that will show you that, you're getting better, and you can only go up from there.
Yes, gratitude is a huge cheat code in the public speaking world, just like it is in life. You want to think about how far you've come versus how far you have left to go.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yes.
These are some great questions.
These are some great questions. I'm sure a lot of our viewers probably have those same questions too. What should I do when I look at the crowd and I see them giving me condescending faces and judging me? All right, well, that's a good question.
Yes, that's a good one.
I'll start it off.
Okay.
Remember earlier how I said you always think you're more nervous than you actually look to the audience?
Mhm.
Also, I think a lot of times other people look more mean to us when we are nervous. So in your eyes, they may be giving you a judging and condescending look, but in their face, in their life, their face is just their face.
Yeah.
They probably don't have any sort of intentions towards you. They
Yeah.
just have a resting whatever face. So I don't want you to focus so much on that. I want you to focus on providing value. That's going to be your number one target, not how other people are looking at you. Because remember, at the end of the day, your goal is to decide whether you like the audience or not. If you think they're giving you a condescending face, look at the next audience member, make direct eye contact with them.
Yeah. I would say there's no way for you to quantify that they are actually being condescending. No, that's an assumption in your mind, and there's no way for you to tell. So for you to focus on something that you don't know if it's a truth or a fact or a lie, it takes the power off of you and gives the power to them. And you never want to give your power away. So I definitely want to mirror what Arman says in this answer. And it's the fact that you are the boss in the situation. You're on the
Yes.
stage, you have control over the room. So it doesn't matter if someone is condescending to you. They're not on the stage. They're not exhibiting this level of confidence and comfort that you are. So, and for anybody that might be condescending in the crowd, there are tons of other people that are very into your message and are open to what you're sharing and are just open to receive. So you definitely, if those faces are throwing you off, you want to find someone that's nodding or smiling at you and just focus on them and use that as a way to just shore up your comfort level.
And there's always that one person that's just like nodding and smiling,
Yes.
so supportive. I love that.
Always find that person.
And if you're in the audience, I recommend you be that person too to a new speaker. They'll remember it.
Yeah.
Hello, I just moved to the US recently and I have a very strong accent. Do you think this will affect my public speaking performance? Great question, because one of my Toastmasters mentees had a very, very strong accent, and that was what was his Achilles heel. But believe it or not, your accent actually is helpful in public speaking. And I've noticed this multiple times. Accents help engagement.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a catch. If you're someone who seems like the accent is a problem and you're talking in a very unconfident manner, then it becomes a problem. But if you act like it's not even there, it's not even something in your mind, you're basically thinking, what accent? Then people will become more intrigued. Something about the accent is a pattern flip and it helps other people stay more tuned in. Do you have any experience with that?
I don't necessarily have experience with having a strong accent, but I have experienced people in my Toastmasters clubs with strong accents. And I can definitely say it only becomes an impediment if you allow it to be.
Yes.
It depends on you. And like you said, if all of us have something that we're a bit insecure about, but it's about putting yourself out there and going past your comfort level. And many people aren't as concerned about the accent as you think they are. Many people actually don't care.
They don't care.
It's a big thing to you because it's personal to you, and that's something that you might think about very often. But when you realize that you're not the only person that has a strong accent. There are millions of people that have it, but there are also millions of people with these strong accents that move through the world and get stuff done and just become great communicators. You realize that you can do it too. It's nothing that can stop you. If anything, it enhances your performance and gives you a level of intrigue that people with regular accents don't have.
Yeah, sometimes people with regular accents wish they had your accent.
You're right.
Yeah. Okay, this will be our final question, and it's a very simple one that we can get really creative with.
Okay.
What do you think is the most important part of public speaking? That's a great question, amazing question. And in my eyes, the number one important thing is enthusiasm. And enthusiasm is so huge because once you have enthusiasm towards your topic, it starts seeping into your body language as well. And Enrico mentioned earlier how important body language is into the entire game. Well, if you're talking about something that you like, people can tell. And when people can see how excited you are about the topic, they strangely become fascinated as well. So I think if you really want to like cheat code your public speaking success, talk about topics that interest you. And if it doesn't interest you, find a way to make it interest you, and it'll definitely show in different elements of you.
I love that.
I love that question.
Think, aside from authenticity, because we've already discussed that, I think the most important part of public speaking is presence and being in the moment and just being yourself in the moment. Because when you're speaking and you're thinking about something else, in a way, it cheapens the connection. In some instances, it might sever the connection. But if you're present and engaged with your audience, you're having a conversation, you're connecting to people, they can definitely feel that. And that's a connection that they will remember sometimes for the rest of their lives. So just being in the present moment with people and understanding this is an experience that we're all sharing together. I don't know you, but I'm blessed enough to share this moment with you in life. And I think just being present and grateful for the opportunity to connect with people on that level, it will calm your anxiety a bit, but also just enrich your performance and that connection.
I love how you you add sort of like a spiritual side of public speaking, which I think is so crucial about staying present, about embracing this moment in life, about being grateful. These are the stuff people don't really talk about. Luckily, luckily we did. Enrico, I have to say, I mean, this has been going on for some time, and thus far it's been nothing short of valuable. So I hope the people that watch this video, watch it from beginning to end, because we've covered so many topics regarding this mysterious world of public speaking.
I had a great time with you, Arman. I definitely feel like anybody who listens to this, they have gems that will help them for the rest of their lives.
Yes.
This is life-changing stuff right here. And it's not just, tips on how to not say ahs and things like that, but it's really dealing with humanity at a fundamental level, like challenging people to address their mindsets and how they look at things, how they look at themselves and other people. And once you master these fundamental things, everything else becomes like child's play.
Yes, and it just becomes a journey. It's something that you want to be very grateful for what Edrico said, because you do have that opportunity to overcome this fear anytime you want.
Yeah.
But more importantly, just take some time to watch this video, maybe even twice, just so you don't miss out on anything that you missed out on the first time. Because these are insights that we've personally had to fail a lot to learn. And these insights can help you in your journey. But most importantly, begin. Find a way to begin, and you'll be a stud in no time. Public speaking isn't something that just ends on the stage. It's something that changes who you are as a person.
Definitely.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Yes,
Thank
Edrico. So
you.
where can the audience, yes, so where can the audience find you?
All right, they can find me on all social media platforms. I do have a podcast. It's called The Speaker's Secrets. It's dedicated to helping people become better at communication. There are some actionable tips that I share every week that helps people with communication and public speaking. But I'm on Instagram and Facebook at The Speaker Secrets, Twitter at Speaker Secrets. You can just type it in Google as well. My name is Edrico Ambrister. All of my personal social media platforms are in my name. So I'm sure you'll include that in like some of the show notes or whatever, but
Yes, I'll
everywhere.
yes, I'll be sure to include those in the link. And if you like today's episode and you want to get more exclusive content regarding the world of public speaking, be sure to sign up for my free daily newsletter right below. That being said, Enrico, I appreciate you for joining me, my brother, and let's keep grinding.
Let's do it. Bless, brother.
Thank you. Have a good one.